Hello and welcome to the latest episode of my knitting and creative podcast. My name on Instagram is Orchid's Heart and I am based in Birmingham in England. Yeah, it's sunny. It hasn't been sunny in so long. I've actually spent the whole day waiting for the sun to come out and it came out about an hour ago, so I went for a bit of a walk and that was really lovely. Probably the latest I've recorded in quite a long time. It's about 4:30. I guess the clock's changed, so we now have some lighter evenings, so that feels really good. I did record this last weekend and I didn't post it online. Don't know why. Sometimes I record these things, I never get around to putting them online, and I finished something else, and so I thought, well, I may as well record again. And I think this is going to be one of those no editing, just upload it right away kind of videos. So apologies if you hear the neighbours and the children because they're having a nice time. So I've been hearing them quite a lot today. But yeah, so let's get into it. I am going to share first of all my shawl. So this feels weird because I shared this with you in the video that you guys have not seen. Or maybe I should mention what I'm wearing first. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm wearing one of my most worn jumpers. This is my Fern and Feather. The pattern is by Jennifer Steinglass, and it's a top-down circular yoke jumper. As you can see, it's got this colourwork detail. I've knit mine with slightly shorter sleeves. I mean, this top is quite long on the sleeves for me, but this is kind of my standard bracelet length sleeve. And the body is a bit cropped as well because I mostly wear high-waisted things. So it comes to here, my waistband's up here. So there's a nice overlap, and I wear this jumper tons. I think my gauge might have been a bit denser than was desired in the pattern. I don't know. I'm actually not sure that I swatched for this jumper. When I cast it on, it was the first colourwork jumper I'd ever done, or colourwork item I've ever done, and I went up a size. I chose to knit a size bigger than was recommended for my size, and I did not size up a needle for the colourwork. It's the same needle size as the rest of the jumper because I didn't know that was a thing you were supposed to do, but it actually worked out really well. And so it was quite dense. I think it's Lettlopi, and I think I knit it on 4mm needles, maybe 4.5. But I absolutely love it. It's not too dense to wear. It doesn't really feel that thick. And I really, really, really enjoy it. I love it. I wear it tons. I like that it's a bit thicker on my neck because I get quite cold. I like that it's not got a rib neck. I think it's got two options for neck, like a ribbed neck or this slightly rolled one, and I really like it. I could knit this again, definitely, but it seems a bit silly to knit it again because it's quite a striking combination. I did think about knitting one in rust, or doing one that's like the reverse, so darker with a light contrast in a colour, not in neutrals. But yeah, so I don't know, maybe that will happen one day. Equally, I don't really need it, so probably not. But whatever recommended needle is recommended for the pattern, I'm pretty sure that's what I used. And I really like that combination of size needle with Lettlopi yarn. So I would definitely knit something again in that combination. But yes, so one of my beloved Lettlopi knits. And I actually don't find this itchy, not really. Because some of this is on my bare neck here, about an inch. If my whole chest was bare, I think I would struggle, but my top comes up to about here, so it's just about okay. But yeah, so my finished object for today, well, one of two, is my Varshall by A Crafter's Tale. Her name is Nina. And I shared it last time, and I'd done the main part of the shawl. So you knit this crescent shape, and then you knit this border sideways. See that texture? And it's like a vine all the way down. Even though I've blocked it, my edge is rolling up quite a lot. It's a little bit annoying. I'm trying to show you. Maybe if I hold it that way, the gravity will show you. I think it's really pretty. So she said it's inspired by catkins. And so the funny little bumpy stitch, if I've got it the right way around, which mine don't really show up that well, to be honest. I'm not entirely convinced I was doing them correctly, even though I followed her video because she has a tutorial. I'm not 100% convinced I was doing the right thing. But it has like these little bumpy things, which you can just about see. And she calls them catkins, and that breaks up like the garter stitch. So you do like, I don't know, 5, 6, 8 rows, can't remember how many, of garter, then a row. Then the catkins is like made up over 3 rows. They're very easy, or at least if I was doing it right, they were very easy. Maybe the yarn I was using was a bit lighter than what was intended, and that's why they don't stand out so much. Because this yarn is the Smuid, I'm probably not saying that correctly, by Shilasdair or Isle of Skye Natural Dye Company, and it's 25% Gotland and 75% BFL or Massam. I'm not sure which, and I don't have the thing down here to show you. And it's naturally dyed in woad and yarrow. So a blue dye and a yellow dye, and I think the colour is stunning. I really love it. It's one of my favourite colours. It goes with the things I wear really well because I wear lots of earthy colours. But it's really bright and springy, and I think it's a really good combination of colour and pattern and yarn because I love Gotland, like that bit of long wool hairiness. My first shawl I ever knit, I knit in, it was the same blend of fibre, 25% Gotland and 75% BFL or Massam, whatever it is, I can't remember which. And it was naturally dyed by the Woolly Mammoth Fibre Co. But the colour wasn't really the colour I thought I was ordering, and when I arrived it wasn't really my colour, but I absolutely loved wearing that scarf. I still wear it tons, well, shawl, sorry. The only thing I really didn't like about it was how the edges curl up, even when you're trying to lie it flat, and they kind of curl, because the edge, the cast on edge, where you knit 2 yarn over and then do the pattern, was really tight and it never laid flat. So some of you will know that I actually tried to knit this twice last year, and stopped because I was having the same problem with the edge being too tight. And then a really lovely viewer told me to watch Little Big Knits because she was knitting a crescent shawl or a shawl and was doing something to stop that super tight edge. And so I watched it and I did it and it works. I love it. So crescent shawls are my favourite shape, and I was really sad that I couldn't find one. I think I wasted a lot of time last summer casting on crescent shawls, trying to knit them and frogging them, because they were all having that tight thing. And just as I was about to start knitting this, I was like, I'm never going to work it out. It's clearly impossible because otherwise everybody would write this into their patterns. Nobody would do it the tight curly way. So clearly it's just not possible. And if I want a crescent shape with that rate of increases, then that's the price to pay, because I prefer crescent shape to triangular. So I was like, I'm just going to get on with it and do it. And luckily I saw this video right before casting on, and I thought, right, well, I'm going to give it a go. And what she suggested to do was to do, I think, an I-cord edge. So knit 3, yarn over, pattern the row, yarn over, slip with the yarn in front 3 stitches, flip. Knit 3, no, I've said that wrong, ignore that. Knit 3, slip them back onto your left hand needle, knit the 3 again, yarn over, pattern your row, yarn over, slip 3, yarn in front, flip, knit 3, slip those 3 back onto your left hand needle, yarn over, pattern your row, yarn over, slip 3, yarn in front. So you knit the first 3 stitches twice. But this pattern only has like a 2-stitch border because it's knit 2, yarn over. And I didn't know if I did 2 stitches whether it would still be stretchy enough. So I decided I was still going to do the 3 stitches. So I've just noticed this is really wonky. I think that's better. Because of the bookcases you can really tell. because of, I didn't know whether a 2-stitch border would work as well as a 3-stitch border, and so I thought I'm going to do the 3-stitch border anyway, so I did. But that meant when I had done the right amount of increases to start patterning, it basically meant it was going to throw me out from stitches a little bit. So I had to do an extra, because on the pattern for this shawl, you're increasing every row, whether you're on the right side or the back side. And so to do forward and then back is increasing 4 stitches, and I'm only 2 stitches short by doing 3 on the border. Of course I could have done 4 stitches either side on the border and then just increase one way and increase back and then had like a 4-stitch border, but I didn't want to do that. So I did a row where I increased like you normally would across the front, and then did a row along the back without doing any yarn overs, without any increases. And it's so early on in the start of the pattern that you can't actually, start of the shawl, that you can't really see that I've done that, because you know it's up here in this little nubby bit, so it's not obvious. And so it's worked really well. I mean, you can't even really see the yarn overs because of the way it's done, but it doesn't curl. Look at that flat edge. I'm really excited about this. It doesn't curl, and so it lies really lovely on. Just flat. No curling. I did record some footage picking wild garlic and wearing my shawl and being all lovely and spring-like, but I think this is going to be a straight upload to YouTube video, so I'll save that for next time. Because I have been out picking quite a lot of wild garlic. It's kind of in its prime freshness right now, so I mean this is a tangent. I have been collecting wild garlic and then blending it with olive oil and freezing it in ice cube trays, so I can put it into various different cooking sort of recipes, whether that be pasta sauces or other things. I tried to make garlic bread with it last night, and I'm not convinced it was really the answer, but I think maybe if I'd done it in the air fryer it might have been crunchier, or if I'd used more olive oil. I'm not sure. That needs more experimentation. But massive tangent. Wild garlic, foraging, picking, green shawls. I don't know, I've been wearing it a lot. I really like it. I went down in needle size because though this yarn says it's a DK, and I think the meterage and weight would indicate it is, it felt to me like a 4-ply. And so I think it said to knit it on a 4mm needle, and I did 3.75. I don't think it was 3mm needle, and then I did 2.75. I don't think I used a needle that small. I can't remember, but I dropped down by 0.25mm. So mine's a bit smaller. I do have a little bit of yarn left. I could have done with a bigger shawl, but I can still wrap it around my neck twice, which is my preference. Like a cozy kind of. To be honest, this is how I wear my shawls, so even if they are really beautiful and lacy and have nice vine details on them, you can't always see it. But they make me happy, so it's fine, and it makes it more fun to knit. And so I tend to wear it like this with a coat. But yeah, so my Varshall. I don't think I said that was the name of the pattern. It's the Varshall by A Crafter's Tale, and I did have a couple of mistakes in the pattern. I think the version I've got was downloaded a long time ago. I don't think I've updated it. And so there were a couple of mistakes, but to me it was obvious and easy enough to sort out. So probably she has updated the pattern, I've just not checked. But yeah, really recommend. The border, though it's not very wide, took me a long time because it's cables and catkins per little stitch. And I thought I'd be able to whiz through it because it's so narrow, but actually cables take me forever. And I couldn't zone out and do it. It wasn't like a lazy evening knit, so yeah, that was a bit different. My next finished object is one I don't think you've seen before, and I finished this yesterday. It's a pair of socks. But don't think, oh my god, how did you knit those since we last spoke, because I have cheated. And I'll explain. These are very long. They're knit with Natural Sock 4-ply by Woolly Mammoth Fibre Co, and that's this paler colour. Amble by the Fibre Company in the colour Buttermere. Exmoor sock yarn by John Arbon, sorry I was questioning myself, in the colour Bibble Bug. I'm not really sure what the name of this is. I would say it's a really pale lilac, so like a paler version of this colour. And it's left over from my Vertices Unite. And this is the first time I'm really looking at it after it was blocked. Actually, I have to say, feeling much better about it. So a few weeks ago, maybe a month or so ago now, I sent off a ton of yarn to somebody to have it cranked into a tube. Now, she normally does it like you pay for 100 grams at a time. But I was going through my sock stash and I had 60 grams of self-striping left over from my Mexico socks that I was knitting on holiday in Mexico. So that was in quite dark colours, like bright yellow, bright red, kind of grey, a blue. And I had bought 100 gram skein with the view of knitting myself some and my partner some. And it came with some contrasting yarn for heels, toes and cuffs. I showed him it after I knit mine and he said he didn't like them. So I was like, great, I've got 60 grams left of this yarn and I could have 2 pairs of socks the same, but do I want that? So it went into the stash. I had a 50 gram skein, because 50 grams is enough for me to make a pair of socks. I'd clearly made some out of 40 grams for myself with the contrasting yarn. So it would have been more than 40 grams. So I had bought traded a 50 gram self-striping sock set. So it was 50 plus 20 of self-striping from Stripy Cat Yarns, her Alice in Wonderland colourway. And I'd never knit it up because I was saving it for a trip because I think self-striping socks are quite good for holidays. And I had 100 grams of Natural Sock 4-ply by Woolly Mammoth Fibre Co in one of her speckly colourways and 40 grams left of this one. So it came to about 250 grams. And so she let me pay for 250 grams worth of yarn and she knit it up into a tube. And you get to choose 60 stitches or 80 stitches. So I chose 60 stitches because I tend to knit somewhere between 60 and 64 for my socks. And I thought that was the only deciding factor for size of the tube. 80 seemed like quite a lot. And I thought a machine knitting would be neater and smaller. Now the sock tubes arrived and they're generally, I would say, considerably bigger than I tend to knit my socks. If you can see, because I have hand knit the foot on these, I mean that's a little bit wider. Maybe if I show you, this is a sock I've knit in the past. So I think you can see here. So I've lined this up. This is a leg I've knit, and so there's quite a bit extra here, and on a sock that's quite a lot extra. So the tubes are kind of too wide for my feet. This one, because it was only 40 grams, I cut it in half and I decided I was going to use it as the leg for a sock. So I picked up and knit the cuffs up. And then I picked up and knit the foot and then heel flap and gusset like I normally do with my socks. Now normally when you have knitting tubes you obviously do an afterthought heel and the toe and the cuff, but obviously this was only long enough to do 2 legs or 2 feet. It wasn't enough to do both unless you were having quite short socks, which I didn't want. I quite liked the idea that I didn't have to do the minus leg knitting thing, you know, because with the foot, by the time you've done the heel, the decreases, you've only got like that much of plain knitting and then it's the toe. And so as these were 60 stitches, and Amble sock yarn is a little bit thicker, so it kind of does go a bit quicker. And so doing those feet were actually quite fun. So these fit quite well because they go quite high on my leg. This does just about stretch enough to go that high up on my leg. I think if I was to do it again, I'd either use a bigger needle to do the bind off. I already did use a bigger needle to do the bind off. I would do the super stretchy bind off, although it does flare a bit, but then you wouldn't see that on the sock. Or maybe I would increase some stitches at the top before doing the rib, so the rib was bigger. So I do have another 100-gram sock tube in natural sock, which would make, if I made one pair of socks, epically long. But that does actually appeal to me because I think I can get the sock tube up to my knees because it does stretch a lot. But what I was going to say is before I blocked them, I found the stitches didn't look that neat. But now that they've been blocked, actually, they do look really neat. They've kind of evened out a lot and it looks much better, much, much better. Because before I got blocked, I actually thought it looked a bit messy. Because my knitting, pre-blocking, I have to say, is generally quite neat. And so I was a bit disappointed. But I do feel like the difference, I mean, maybe I should have gotten a sock tube down to show you. But I think it's filled out and looks much, much, much neater and probably does look the same as my knitting now. But because the sock tubes are frankly too big for my very skinny, narrow feet, I think I will walk out of them. I might have to unravel the equivalent yarn for the feet and reknit the feet on the really long pair. The one that's the same colour as the socks I knit for myself, I am going to see if the sock tube fits my partner, because once I showed him the sock tube, for some reason now he doesn't mind it. Like, quite clearly said to him before he didn't like it. So who knows. So if the sock tube does fit on his feet, which it might not, it might be a bit of a stretch, then I will turn that into socks for him, which leaves me with the Alice in Wonderland themed one. So I might turn those into a gift for somebody. My aunt, I think, has wider feet than me, so she might be okay. I mean, equally, when it's superwash merino sock yarn, I actually like wearing them as proper socks, not as house socks. Like, I wear them around the house. Sorry, not around the house, out the house, in shoes. I don't know whether these will be house socks or boot socks, but because they're quite long, these actually might be quite good boot socks. And, you know, there is nylon in both Amble and Exmoor sock. But equally, the long leg will be really good with my trousers, because most of my trousers are slightly cropped on my ankle, and that will really cover my ankles up. I think I'm going to wear these tons. But yeah, so maybe the Alice in Wonderland socks will become a present for my aunt or something at Christmas. Because I finished a pair of socks my mum was starting to knit last year for my aunt for Christmas. And she was absolutely ecstatic that somebody gave her hand knit socks. So I might give them to her. I think she would really like them, and it is kind of her colours, so probably that's where they'll end up. Maybe if they fit me, I'll keep them, but I don't need them, and if I thought they would make her that happy and fit her, then that would be really lovely. The only thing is, I don't know how easy it's going to be to knit after thought heel socks for somebody whose feet I don't regularly encounter. I've also never done it before, so I haven't actually got any idea how to do it accurately. I kind of thought with my partners, sorry, my tummy's starting to grumble a bit. With my partners, I would do my best to get the heel in the right place. And if it was a bit short on the foot, then he would just have a deeper contrast toe to compensate for that. And if I did the heels before the toe and cuff, then I would be able to sort of fudge it a bit. Yeah, I don't know about my aunt. I kind of guessed with the socks I made her before. And I didn't take measurements, so I don't remember. So there we go. Don't know. Anyway, so I have 3 rips. One you've not seen before. I will start with that because it's a sock. And it kind of relates to the sock I was just showing you, which I've clearly hidden somewhere. Oh, it's on my lap because I couldn't see it. So, quite a while ago, a year or 2 ago, I knit myself this pair of socks. These are quite worn now. I don't know how well you can see that on screen. But it was knit from this hand dyed by Olann Mills, who are in Ireland. But I think they've recently stopped dyeing. And this was a merino cashmere blend with nylon in these earthy purpley colours. But I wasn't really impressed with how the cashmere blend kind of wore. It's really bobbly. I don't really know if you can see. I think it probably doesn't look quite so bad on camera. Plus I might have done a bit of getting the worst of it off. But I did really like wearing them, and I actually really enjoyed knitting these. I knit the entire pair in a week, but obviously it has got quite a short leg. So I have been doing a bit of doctoring on my socks lately, knitting the leg a bit longer on some of them, the feet a bit longer on some that have shrunk. And so I did think about picking up the cuff and knitting like a longer cuff, so they're a bit longer because these are really short. They might have been one of the first pairs I knit, and I didn't really, like, I think when I knit them maybe they were a bit longer and they've kind of shrunk down. But I was watching, sorry, I'm just gonna have some water. I was watching Inga from Knitting Traditions, and she has been doing a lot of knitting socks with mohair. So I was inspired, and I had this mohair in my stash, a random one skein I bought on a D-stash back when I didn't really understand yarn and weights and things like that, and that actually a single skein of mohair doesn't go as far as you think. So I am combining these two. So I had like 50 grams left of this, maybe a bit more. And a whole 25 gram skein of this. Don't really remember what it is, to be honest. It's just a generic mohair. And I thought they would pair really well together because this has quite a lot of the same colour but pale. And I am knitting these really soft, fluffy socks. So you can see, and so that's why I brought this one down, because you can see the difference. So this is much darker and this is much lighter. But it's the same yarn, and it just makes the colours less intense. When I was knitting this, I really enjoyed that occasionally there was like a fluorescent green stitch or like a red stitch or something like that. There are a few like really subtle bright stitches. You don't really get that in this, but they just feel so soft and cozy, and I'm really enjoying knitting on them. And I've tried to, well, I have made the leg quite a lot longer by like that much, so hopefully they'll be a bit more wearable as well, and hopefully they'll be more hard wearing with the mohair in there. I have not worn mohair socks before, so I don't know whether this is something that I will wear around the house or out the house or not. And I've got on here, I don't know if you'll be able to see. Will it focus? Can you see? I've made a little raven progress keeper. It's got a little black raven on it and a little glass bead under a star. And I do actually have some pre-orders open in my shop for those progress keepers. I'm doing them with a little coordinating tiny stitch marker so that you can do your decreases on your sock gussets, because that's what I really like to use them for. So they're on my Ko-fi shop if you're interested. I do have a pre-order open, but I also actually did just buy quite a lot of these little ravens, so they're pretty much ready to ship if you're interested. But I do have a few others in my, they're up for pre-order, which I'll share at the end of the video. Just showing that because it was on there. So I'm about halfway through that first sock now, and this is my like travel knitting. I've been doing this, I had both my mum and my partner's mum visiting for the weekend, so we've been going out for coffee and breakfast and stuff like that, so I've been knitting on this. And I separated what I had left into two balls, so this is like for one sock, this is what I've got left for this first sock. I don't know how far I'm going to get until I run out of this. If I do run out, because I don't know if that with the mohair is enough for a foot and toe, then I will do a contrast toe for however deep it needs to be. probably using this same yarn because I think with the mohair it would blend quite well. Or I do have this left over from another pair of socks, which is kind of similar to some of the colours in there too. So maybe I'll use that with the mohair and use it up. Because this colour is a bit of a colour, and so on the toe maybe that's fine. But the purple might blend in more and look less standy outy. I was considering using this for heels and toes, but clearly I haven't. So we'll see. I'll see how it goes. So my final two whips you have seen before. One of them I've made a lot of progress on. The other one I'm not sure how much, if any, progress I've made since we last spoke, because being that I filmed once and not shared it, actually can't remember how much progress I had on it before. Starting to get quite hungry. Sorry. Trying not to rush. So which one should I share with you first? I am knitting the Eastwind Jacket by Emily Foden, Viola Knits. And I'm knitting mine out of a yarn that's quite a lot like Newton, I think. It's the Manchelopi by Wool Dreamers. And I'm knitting it out of like the medium brown. I'm just dropping everything. Hold on. This medium grey-brown colour. And these skeins of like purpley mohair. So this is what I've got left from my first plate. And I'm on my second skein of mohair. Worries me slightly. And I have knit the front right or front left. I think I'm going to struggle showing this to you all in one go. It's quite long. So this hole is a pocket, which I need to pick up and knit. It's got like a contrast hem, which I had mixed feelings about, but I tried to cast on with the Manchelopi and it was too soft and kept breaking, even with the mohair. Maybe it'll stay on if I do that. It's got a cable detail running up the side, so I think this is where it meets at the front, yeah. And it's a drop shoulder construction, so I've already knit part of the arm. And so on the pattern you actually do knit the collar on the 4 pieces, because you knit the 2 fronts and the 2 back sections in 2 separate pieces. And you knit a portion of the collar on each, but I have decided that that's kind of mad, and I am going to seam my 4 pieces together and then knit the collar in like one go. So I am probably going to leave these on a live cable with stoppers, put it to one side, and do the other pieces, and then when I'm done, either then knit the neck, then sew it together, or I'll probably block it, seam it, then pick up all the stitches on one cable and do the neck. I think I have enough short cables that that's not a problem, depending what other projects I do in the next few months, that I won't need to put things on scrap yarn. Although, to be honest, if it was just in my project bag and not being blocked whilst I was knitting on other things, I probably can fit that on a large safety pin, because I've got some quite big safety pins. But yeah, I did find it hard to get into the groove with this. I think I shared last time that I found it quite difficult keeping track in my head, it being like cable band B, row 1, body B, row 6, cable band 2, row body 7, cable 3, body 1, and all of that, because there was 6 repeats for one section and 8 for the other, so you're a bit out of sync. So I did, and this isn't showing the pattern, this is just the numbers, I wrote out like C1, B7, B8, C2, C3, B1, because you're going back and forth, so I flipped them a bit. that's not going to mean anything to you unless you've done something similar. And so I was ticking these off. And I realised after doing 24 rows, you kind of go back to the beginning. So I'm doing the same 24 rows over and over again. And I find that much easier. And once I kind of figured that out in my head, it got a bit better. So yeah, probably still not that portable of a project because I'm using unspun and it's quite big plates to start with. So it might take me quite a long time to knit this. It kind of depends, I think, whether casting on the next section takes me quite a while, whether I can motivate myself, for instance, to cast on the next section tonight, which I might do, or whether that becomes something I put off. I kind of knit on this quite a lot in the last week, and this section maybe took me 2 weeks, but this section down here, the first inch, probably took 2 months. But now that the process is in my head, I wonder if I should just push myself to keep going. I would quite like it to be done by the autumn, and I kind of thought that maybe I would do both the fronts now and then the back in a while, or you know, maybe all the fronts and the back before it gets too warm, and then do the sleeves next autumn. I don't know, ideally I'd actually like to get the whole thing knit and put it away for the autumn and get it out ready when it gets cold, but we'll see. I don't know. I'm a bit worried I might run out of mohair. I do kind of want to knit the pockets, or at least the first inch of the pockets, in the same yarn so that the cream isn't peeking out, and that's Lettlopi, by the way. Just because, though it could be pretty to have contrast pockets showing, because of the strong colour change difference, to me it kind of stands out a bit too much. And I think I would prefer if the pocket was in that darker colour. So I'll see how much yarn maybe I have left at the end, which might mean that I can't actually do my pockets until the very, very end. And I feel like weight-wise, it would be easier to do it right now. I kind of had thought if I run out of mohair that I might, because it's a drop shoulder, the sleeves you do is mostly cuff, I think. And that maybe if I had a slightly darker mohair on the cuff, it wasn't the end of the world. And then for the button band, maybe it's not the end of the world. And so maybe I should just knit the pockets now and then just think that, because I can always buy more of the Manchelopi. I don't think that that is too bad colour match wise. And I feel like 5 plates, and I've used 1 minus a bit to do a front, that probably I'm okay if I've got 5. Because if I use almost 1 for a front, and then the other front, and then almost 1 for each of the sides of the back, I would have enough left, hopefully, to do the cuffs, neck and pockets, I think. We'll see, maybe it's a bit of yarn chicken. I think I was supposed to buy slightly more mohair than I did, but I couldn't. It was like the ends of a sale, and as it was, somebody destashed some to me. Of course I could have bought a yarn that was easier to get hold of, but it was a bit cheaper. This is a lot of yarn in this project, which makes it quite expensive, and I was quite keen to knit it not too expensive, because I've never knit a garment like this before, but I really like Cat weavers, and every time she wears it I'm a bit jealous. So yeah, and I did kind of start enjoying it, knitting it, so maybe I will cast on the back tonight, because actually I read that somebody knit the entire back in one piece because it's 2 seamed pieces, and I understand that a seam does add some strength to the back, but I also think, like, do I really need to do that? So I might just knit the back all in one go, in one piece, which will obviously take me longer, but then maybe that's quite a nice sense of achievement. Equally, for symmetry, maybe I should do the other front now. The back next, I don't know. I think I'm overthinking it. My last whip, which I was knitting kind of Helfer leather at the start, because there was a a Lento knit along, and I wanted to see how much I could knit before the end of the Lento knit along. And I'd say I did quite a lot. This is the Lento. I'm knitting mine in a couple of yarns. These two, which is by a company called Boucle Laine, and then this dyed to order Suri alpaca by Nervus Fibre, which I chose because it was in really similar colours to the two of these. I was given these a long time ago by a really lovely person on Instagram. She chose them, we did a swap, and she thought these colours were really me, which is really true. But I think I really struggle picking projects for single skeins. And I really wanted to knit them together. I just really wasn't sure. I'm not really sure what they are. I think there's some alpaca in this one and Romney in this one. I'm not sure. But I decided that striping them together in something like the Lento with a fluff to make the stripes less obvious would look really lovely. And I'm really enjoying it. I think it's really, really soft. I'm using some leftover Law by the Natural Fibre Company, which is a DK yarn, for the contrast ribbing, because I didn't think I'd have quite enough yarn to do all of the ribbing and the body. But I might, to be honest. I just get a bit worried. So really I probably should have done a provisional cast on, which maybe is what the pattern asks you to do, and I might have skipped that. Maybe I should have done a provisional cast on, knit the jumper, and then seen if I had enough left to do the ribbing in the same yarn. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's a raglan, and I am carrying my yarn up the inside on the back for the stripes, which does mean I have a very slight ladder, which you can see, which I'm not loving, and it's better and worse in some places, but it is on the back. I'm not sure anyone else is ever really going to notice, and when I block it, it might be less obvious. So yeah, really pretty, slightly stripy jumper. But it's on hold at the moment because it's just stockinette. It's very much at the stage of a pub or home meeting knitting. And I've not had so much of that lately. I was knitting on my socks. I got a bit sock addicted. And now that I've just cast on this fluffy socks, that's probably going to continue. So I've not done so much work on that, but I would like to pick it up and finish it soon. I feel like it won't take me that long to do. We are going to Suffolk in a couple of weekends, so maybe I will take it with me. But it is quite good film knitting or TV knitting, so maybe I won't. So that's all the projects I've got to share with you today. I was just going to share some stitch markers I'm putting into my shop, so if that doesn't interest you, then goodbye. Really, it's a very small offering. I'm only putting 3 things up for pre-order. You've already seen one. But yeah, that's what I've got. Next time maybe I will share a bit more of what I've been getting up to outside of knitting. Now the spring's coming. I am doing a bit of planting and gardening, but maybe I'll share that next time. So thank you for leaving me now. If you would like to see what I am adding, or have added, sorry, to my Ko-fi shop, then I'll just show you briefly now. So the main thing is, I know a lot of my stitch markers tend to be quite small because I knit a lot of socks. And so I was knitting something the other day, and I decided I really wanted some bigger stitch markers for those chunkier jumpers. And so I decided, wouldn't it be great if you could have a complete set of like raglan stitch markers with a progress creeper, and then like a matching kind of set for socks as well, because a raglan jumper and a pair of socks are like my favourite things to knit. So I don't know how well you're going to see these. So these are all like, I don't know how that's going to focus. These are all brass findings. So these are really big hoops. They're like 10mm, so you can fit quite a big needle in there. And they've all got, this isn't really working. is it? They've all got a brass star on, a glass bead, and then there's 2 progress keepers. One's got this mother of pearl shell, like moon, a brass moon with stars on, and then a smaller stitch marker for the gusset on your socks. I can't see at this point whether this is focusing or not. Yeah, I'm not sure it's working because it's focusing on my face. And I don't think it's something I can stop mid video. But you get the picture, and if they do seem appealing, or maybe they are focusing there, look. Ah, there we go, I think. So 3 really big stitch markers and 2 progress keepers. I think these actually fit up to an 8mm needle. So you could use one of these and these 3 for your raglan on your jumper, and then these 2, for instance, on your socks, all the other way around to the progress keepers. And they're all kind of moon and star themed because I'm really enjoying that at the moment. And so these are up for pre-order on my Ko-fi shop. I think they're really pretty. And then I have my ravens up that I showed you earlier, and I've put these little mushrooms back up, which I've done before and shared before. So it's just a little mushroom with a star and a glass bead. And I'm doing the progress keepers, the raven and the mushroom, with a little sock stitch marker as well, so you could use them as a set for your socks or not. You know, these progress keepers do fit up to an 8mm, and so they're all brass and enamel charms and things like that, and so I really like them. So they're available to order if you would like. And I'll probably just leave pre-orders open for a while and just leave it rolling as long as there's some interest. So yeah, I hope you're all doing well. This came out a lot longer than I thought it was going to, because when I recorded the other day it was only 30 minutes. But I did have some extra products there to show you that I didn't have last time, so that's probably why. So I hope you guys are enjoying the changing of the seasons, whether you're getting cozy for autumn coming or looking forward to not having to be cozy anymore and it being spring and you've had enough of the cold, like me. Then I hope you're enjoying that change, and I will speak to you again in a couple